but there's audiences beyond this Zoom call as well. Oh, hi, John. So there are also a lot of people from the World Storytelling Cafe joining us, professional storytellers from all over the world. We'll be talking about that project in a bit. But we've also got people on the British Moroccan Society Facebook page and the Facebook group. So we hopefully will have a very large online audience as well as the interactive Zoom call. So a big welcome to everybody and thanks so much for joining us. And before I introduce Mike and Lucy, whom some of you know and some of you may not. Most of you well, obviously on the Zoom call, you're familiar with Mike and Lucy, but some of our wider audience might not know. But before I introduce them, I just wanted to mention a few other things, hopefully coming up in the next month or so. So one of them is a professor of anthropology from Kansas University in the States called Abdulmajid Hanoum. And he's just written this beautiful book called Living Tangier. And it's an anthropological book where he interviews dozens of migrants and street kids in Tangier. So it's a very sort of down-to-earth, gritty reality check on the sort of underbelly of life in Tangier. And it's very much describing it as a crossroads for migration. It's a fascinating book. And it's funny because at the beginning he says lots of Western writers have romanticized Tangier, and I think I'm one of those. That's because you know I've sort of talked about the glory days of William Burroughs and Paul Bowles and Barbara Hutton and Tennessee Williams and sort of you know all the wonderful things that we sometimes think about. But actually Abdulmajid has interviewed people you know really struggling and trying to get into Europe, and so we're going to interview him and he'll talk about his research and his book. And then also, hopefully, again, in the next couple of months, but it maybe depends on how this coronavirus lockdown or the crisis is going. But Martin Rose, who's the former head of the British Council in Rabat, has written a very interesting article about the historical links between Morocco and Manchester. And we thought in order to sort of broaden our base, we should really, ideally, do an interview, do a talk up in Manchester. So that might be an ambitious thing to do after the COVID restrictions have been lifted. And he's also, I gather that there's a Moroccan academic who's written a book about the history of Manchester and Morocco, the links. So we might be able to get him involved as well. So anyway, a couple of very interesting things that we can do in the next couple of months. But for tonight's event, we're very privileged to have Mike and Lucy Wood talk about two of their projects. One is the Henna Cafe project, which is basically a food distribution charitable. It's been they've got it up and running. They're going to tell us how they did that. And the other one is the World Storytelling Cafe, which has brought storytellers from all over the world to perform to online audiences, a bit like we're doing tonight. And we're going to have a little flavor of some of the stories. We're going to have a couple of Moroccan storytellers. So a big welcome to Zuhair and Hakima as well, who are kindly going to perform for us to lighten the proceedings and entertain everybody. So Mike and Lucy, they own 4 riads in Marrakesh, and they've been supporters and longtime members of the British Moroccan Society. And basically, they've got these 2 projects. So I wanted to start by asking Lucy to tell us a bit about the background to the Henna Cafe, first of all.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Yeah, so Mike and I, we really enjoyed renovating these beautiful Moroccan buildings into riads. And at first we had no intention whatsoever of making these riads into hotels. We just loved the architecture. But then once we made the riads into hotels, we were really quite surprised that we started making money doing this. And it started to become clear that with poverty all around us in Marrakesh, that we had a duty to do something to make a contribution. And so we tried to figure out what we could do that would make a difference. And we realized that actually just giving money to people on the streets could be very counterproductive, in that, you know, somebody might have a problem with alcohol, and if you give them money, then obviously they might be tempted to go and buy more alcohol. So together with some friends, in fact, Sarah Corbett is here with us right now. We brainstormed and tried to think what would be the very best way of giving back or making a difference within Marrakesh. And we've always liked the saying, you know, give a man a fish and you feed him for one day, and give the person a fishing rod and you feed them for the rest of their lives. So the Henna Cafe was really built on that principle. And so we began with a cafe where we were offering henna adornment. And Sarah Corbett, those of you who know her, she's always been very involved, very interested in jewels, Moroccan jewelry and henna adornment and fabrics as well. So she brought that very much to the forefront of the Henna Cafe. And Mike's always been a foodie, and so we combined the henna and the food to make the Henna Cafe. And so every penny that the Henna Cafe makes from serving tourists food and henna, that goes towards an education project where we offer education for all age groups. Actually, it's not just for children, and it's for both women and men. And we offer all sorts of courses that you might typically find in a school. But our teachers, I think, are they're very engaging. They're very often young students who've perhaps got a master's degree in their subject, and they want an opportunity to try and teach that subject. So we find that the students are extremely keen to go there. We teach them a whole range of languages, from English, beginners, middle and advanced, conversation, reading, writing, French, German, sometimes Italian, sometimes Spanish, Japanese before the lockdown, science, maths, philosophy, economics, business studies, and art and other creative drama, different courses. And we've been running that very successfully. It's been really, really popular since I think it's 2011. And then when lockdown happened, we had to, we had to had to close the cafe, and sadly we had to suspend the education. But we're hoping as soon as it's safe to do so, we would love to we will be bringing the classes back, and the children will once again be able to start to learn again. Yeah, so that's really why and how we started up the cafe. Yeah.
Great. And sorry, I forgot to mention, but Yuliu has kindly messaged people. But if you're not reading the chat thing, just to say, Yuliu is kindly doing all the technical administration tonight. So he's muted everyone apart from Mike and Lucy and myself for the moment. When you want to ask a question towards the end, then you unmute yourself, or you can also put a question out on chat. And I also just wanted to introduce our relatively new chair of the BMS, Tim Morris, as well. So a wave to Tim. But thanks so much. So Mike, I gather there was a sort of intermediary sort of precursor to the project called the Medina Food Project. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, very much so. So a good friend of ours, Colin Bosworth, who's based in Marrakesh with his partner Claire, started in the depths of lockdown back in April, when it was not possible to go out of your home in Marrakesh, and people had no way of earning a living. Obviously, he started it was a very short, sort of very urgent appeal that raised a lot of money. So in the course of a month, it raised £18,000. Very broadly supported. The BMS donated, and a lot of us donated individually as well. And what that project was doing was distributing food parcels. So this is a photograph of the Henna Cafe, which was one of 2 distribution centres, and we were buying food in bulk and making food parcels which were enough for a family for a week. And they were extremely well received, and that was I think at that time it was a very appropriate response, and it was just wonderful the speed with which everybody came together. It was all run by volunteers, and we were very, very pleased to be part of it.
And Lucy, then that turned into the soup kitchen then.
Yeah, well, when Colin's project ran out of money, we already had a distribution centre at the Henna Cafe, and it seemed like such a shame because we had the infrastructure there to close it down, and also there was still a very great need. We had hoped that by this time that there wouldn't be so much of a need for food parcels, but it became evident from talking with people in Marrakesh that there was an increasing need, if anything. And because we didn't have the funding at the same level as Colin's project, we decided that we were going to try and offer just meals rather than food for a family for a week. We were going to target the very poorest people in Marrakesh, so the homeless and elderly and people who are in the poorest parts of the Medina, and just offer a nourishing meal for each person that wanted one. So we started doing that instead, and the truth is that it had quite a shaky start because I am not the world's greatest manager, and trying to get people organized and to try and agree the menu and get it started off, it was really not moving forward very quickly. And so then Mike decided to go over to Marrakesh, and he has a background in business, and he's very organized, very good manager. So he went over and he had a pep talk with the staff and sort of designated different roles for different people, and managed to get other people on board who are specialists, so a nutritionist and so on. And then the project really from that point onwards started flying, really.
And you've already, gather, served more than 9,000 meals. So Mike, it's a huge operation. And as Lucy said, you've got a background in business. How did you sort of apply those skills? I mean, how did you get all this up and running?
Well, we really kicked off we really kicked on, I would say, in late September when I was able to visit, and I had a lot of help from Zuhair, who's on the call, and Sarah and Dunia, our manageresses at the cafe, amongst others. And we set about, I suppose there were 2 threads to it. One was the sourcing of the food and menu development, and the other was improving distribution and getting the food to the right people. So big thank yous to Lynn Ducker. I'm not sure if Lynn is on the call. Lynn's a nutritionist who has a saffron farm in near to Marrakesh. To Bridget Harris also, who has a lot of restaurant experience. To Fatima Anstead and others who helped us a lot with menu development. So our meal has, it's a 1,000 calorie meal. The heart of it is a Medina roll. So we put either a tortilla, an egg tortilla stuffed with vegetables, and all of our meals are vegetarian. So it's a vegetarian tortilla, or a falafel. The one in the picture there is a falafel with salad. And then we make an energy bar, which Lynn gives a lot of help formulating, and that's got rolled and toasted oats in it. It's got dates, it's got nuts, it's got figs, it's got seeds. So we're getting a lot of minerals and vitamins in through that. And finally, we always a piece of fruit. And it's serviced in a paper packaging, so you can see the paper wrapper around it, which is COVID friendly and environmentally friendly as well. So that's the sort of sourcing aspect. And then in terms of distribution, About half of the meals are collected from the cafe. We started at the beginning. We gave them to everybody who asked, but over a period of time, and I think Zuhair really took the lead on this. But the team who were interacting with the public did a brilliant job at sort of throttling that back a little bit, so that we weren't giving meals to everybody, but we were just sort of pointing out that, well, we did run out yesterday, and do you really need one, sort of thing, and it just gently sort of throttled back, so that we were giving to people who were most in need. And I think that's something which our team were really able to do very well. And then the other sort of part of it is distributing away from the cafe, because some of the people in most need are actually not terribly mobile. So around near the bus station in Bab Dukala, for example, there are a lot of homeless people, and there are sort of pockets of people who are less mobile. So we deliver quite a bit to people in their own homes, or the fonduques and the places where people in the greatest need live. We've worked very closely with the Piccola Bicycle Association. So some of you will know Piccola. It's a really successful Dutch founded charity that has done a lot of work based on bicycles and access to bicycles. But they raised a lot of money in the summer from TUI, the TUI Foundation, and they were like us. They initially were giving away, they were working on food parcels, then they moved on to meals. And serendipitously, just as their TUI money was running out, we were getting up to scale with our production. So 3 days a week, they take away half of our meals, and they distribute them to these pockets of people that they've found. And with their bicycles, they can get deep into the Medina, into the fonduques, and into parts of the community that's not so easy to reach. And here you can see a young man loading up 50 meals on his backpack, ready to take off into the Medina. So many thanks to all those many people who supported us there. And as Richard said, we're very proud to have distributed now 9,000 meals, and we're distributing 150 a day, I think, for the foreseeable future.
It's really amazing, and it's such because we at the BMS, of course, we support lots of charities and charitable projects, but sometimes it's sort of difficult to define what the charities are all about, and that sometimes it feels very abstract. But in this case, it's such a sort of targeted and concrete charitable project that has an immediate impact, and it's just it's such a fantastic thing that you guys are doing. So
we're very grateful to the BMS for their very generous donation. And Sarah, actually, who's on the call, Sarah Corbett, although she's no longer directly involved with the old Henna Cafe, the education and cafe, she's very much part of the picture in terms of the soup kitchen. She's raised an enormous amount of money through her selling of jewellery online through her Facebook page. So we're getting regular donations from Sarah. So thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. So whilst we've been able to sort of structure things and to make this to act as a sort of conduit, this is a very broad-based initiative. So just as Colin's earlier project got a lot of very broad support, we've had more than 50 donations in the short time that we've been running. So that's some from private individuals as small as £5, and some from associations like the BMS, which run into thousands. So we're very proud to be able to make that contribution, but it really is very broadly based.
Yeah.
And Mike, if people want to donate, how can they go about that? Can you tell us a bit more about the fundraising?
Sure. Well, we have a fundraiser on Gofundme. So if you go to Gofundme and type in Henna Cafe Soup Kitchen, you'll catch it that way. Or you would find it through the Henna Cafe Marrakesh website. There's a link through there. And that would be the sort of the short-term way. I would like to stress, though, that if you, as we were saying, some of us who were chatting before the call started, Marrakesh is very much open for business. A lot of people are visiting Marrakesh and having a great holiday at the moment. So, if you are able and ready to do that, then by far the most useful thing that you can do is to go there and enjoy yourself and participate, have your vacation, invest if you're a business person, whatever. Living life normally is by far the best contribution that we can make. But in response to this sort of short-term project that we're doing, to respond to this short-term need, if you're not able to get to Marrakesh, by all means, it would be wonderful, and we would really appreciate, and our service users would really appreciate your contribution. And I can promise you that we are as efficient as we really can be in terms of purchasing and in terms of operating the operation on the ground.
It's almost 100% of what's donated gets translated into food, so there's very, very low operating costs. And because Mike and Zuhair and our neighbours around the Henna Cafe have really helped with sourcing the very best deals, bulk deals, it does mean that the meals that we provide, even though they're very substantial and they're well balanced, nourishing, they're only costing about 5 dirhams, which is about 40p per meal. So we're very pleased that the costs are so low. I mean, that's why we've been able to feed so many people, really.
And it does look delicious. I'm glad that I ate first, because otherwise I'll be feeling very hungry and salivating over those bitter breads and things. But Lucy, it can't all have been plain sailing. Have you had your ups and downs?
Yeah, we definitely have. I mean, in terms of running the Henna Cafe, starting the Henna Cafe out, yes, but I'll just talk about the soup kitchen hiccups for now. So when we first started to take over or to change the project from Colin's project to the Henna Cafe soup kitchen, the first thing we needed to do was to get the Henna Cafe building clean. And it had been sat there for many months, gathering dust and having insect infestations arriving. So the normally very clean kitchen and dining areas and henna areas and classroom areas were in a big mess. And so I thought, oh, well, that'll be quite easy. Someone will go and clean it for us. And nobody wanted to do it. And it was everybody wanted to help their neighbours to get food, but nobody seemed willing to do the very basic and unglamorous task of cleaning out the kitchen. Everybody seemed to have asthma or inability to bend over to clean. And it was really frustrating, because I thought, I'm not the world's greatest cleaner by any means, but I was just so keen. I thought, oh, if I was there, I'd just clean it in one day. So it took us about a week of ridiculous waiting time before we managed to find some people who could see that the cleaning needed doing before we did anything else. And the other problem that was very frustrating was when we first started off, we just assumed that those people who were not particularly hungry wouldn't come out and get themselves a free meal. But we were wrong. So there were a lot of young men who were clearly very well nourished, but they saw that there was a free meal available in their neighborhood. So we had the first few days, we sort of wasted this, well, it wasn't really wasted, but we were a bit frustrated because we hadn't thought that we were going to have to police the donation of the food. So we started monitoring, and Mike's, as I said, Mike's very efficient. He got Zuhair and the ladies in the cafe to monitor the age groups and to see who was actually being given a meal. And so we made a rule that if you were under 18, you needed to be with your parent in order to get a meal, because we figured that the parents were not very likely to try and grab a free dinner if they were with their child. So that was quickly sorted out, but that was an unexpected hiccup. And then the other thing we found quite difficult was getting people to wear the PPE. And we felt that this was really important because we didn't want to spread COVID unintentionally. We wanted to make sure that, particularly because we were trying to reach out to those people who were particularly vulnerable. So people who were elderly or who had some form of disability or learning difficulty. So we had to really try very hard, and Zuhair will back me up on this. We had to have sort of some instructional videos on how to wear PPE. So the mask is useless if it's below your nose, for example, and the gloves are not something to just put on at the beginning of the day and then take them off after a few minutes. It's so we did have that difficulty, but finally we've got very, very good safety standards. I think now we've got we take everybody's temperature who's coming into the cafe on a daily basis, and we get reports on that. This is again one of Mike's systems that he set up, and we make sure that everybody is wearing PPE. So we're very careful that we're not spreading COVID when people are distributing. Yeah, so those are some of the hiccups, but overall it's been fantastic just seeing how helpful everybody has wanted to be in the preparation of the food and distribution and so on.
Great. So you mentioned Zuhair there. So can we bring you in, Zuhair? You work for Mike and Lucy, but you've also been volunteering at the Henna Cafe. So can you give us a sense of how things are going on the ground and how it's being received by local people in the Medina?
Yeah, things at the moment is great. It's definitely improved from how it started to now how we're giving the meals and how the meals are at the moment. And people are very grateful. They thank us every day. Some people come regular every day. And you know, some of them say that that's the only meal they had before, the night before. And it's very hard at the moment for some people in Marrakesh. And it's definitely a very good help for this. And I'm glad I'm in this project. You know, appreciate Lucy and Mike's help, and definitely Mike's guidance from the beginning, changing the menu and helping us, giving it to the right people and getting the stuff from the right places. That was very, very helpful from him. He's improving, and you know, thanks everyone at the Henna Cafe. The volunteers, we have volunteers come and help us from different days. People from America, some Spanish people, and that's very, very nice. It's very great, and it's very nice to see that you're helping people in Marrakesh, especially the homeless people. Areas like Bab the Kuala or around the Medina, around the souk, people are sleeping in the street, and it's very, very helpful that we providing a meal for them.
Can you give us a sense of how badly Marrakesh has been affected by the COVID lockdown?
But now it's not too bad how it used to be. At the beginning of it was very, very hard. Things is getting a little bit back to normal, but people are still affected because most of people in Marrakesh are related to tourism and people coming and visiting Marrakesh. We didn't have no visitors since March, and it's been very hard. Life is getting back, but I'm sure you know you've been to I don't know if you've been to Marrakesh or not, but Marrakesh without people from outside of Marrakesh is not Marrakesh. You need people to visit Marrakesh to make Marrakesh. But hopefully this is over very soon and things will get back to normal again.
Great, thank you so much. And confusingly, we have two Zuhairs tonight. We have another Zuhair Kaznawi, who's been helping out with the soup kitchen, but he's also a professional storyteller. So Zuhair, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? And I gather you've got a story for us.
All right. So first, let me start with my experience in Henna Cafe. I mean, the idea is very, very lovely. I haven't done I mean, much of volunteering with them, but like 3 days delivering the food. It was very good experience. I mean, the team was very organized, and I mean, the people who are leading the project, they really know how to manage things. Yeah. And about me, I've been doing professional storytelling for quite some time. Um, and basically, why I still do it uh, is that I see the impact on the audience, because I'm a student of literature, and storytelling is very very much like reading a book, because reading a book, it gives you access to a lot of feelings and emotions and human experiences that you cannot go through in one lifetime. And it's the same thing with storytelling. It may give solutions, it may give hope, may give happiness and sadness. So it's a variety of feelings and human experiences, even though the things that we tell about may not be true, but the experience is true to us as humans. And yeah, I have a story for the lovely audience tonight. But before, I would love to start, since it's Morocco British community, I would love to start with a poem, a Moroccan poem that embraces wisdom and conveys a lot of meaningful messages about life. It's gonna be in Arabic. There will be no translation, but if you really want the translation, you can contact me directly. كما قال يا سيادي سيدي عبد الرحمن المجدوب، شافوني كحل مغلف، قالوا ما فيا دخيره، وانا كي الكتاب مؤلف فيها منافع كثيره. سبحان بدل السوايع مولانا، ومخالف الظنون فيما ياتي، تبات واكحه وتصبح رويانه، وما هيجري على القلاتي، لا قنطه من رحمه الله هداتي. هكذا قدا وقدر حاجه المولى على عبيدو، اللي جات فيه يا سيادي صبر، واللي ما صبر كاع عاش بيدو. قال لك اللي عنا بك عنا به، واللي ما عنا بك لوحو، اللي بدل في الضبل قصدير ما كيشمت الا روحو. يا الواكل لحم الراس في البير لوح عظامو، الا كنتي جالس بين الناس دير يا سيدي لفمك الجامو. وقال لك اسيدي الصمت حكمه ومن تفرقوا الحكايم، كون ما قرقر ولد الحمامه كاع ما يجيه الحنش هايم. من زينهم النساء، من زينهم النساء بضحكات، لو كان فيها يدومو. الحوت كيعوم في الماء، وهما يا سيادي بلا ما كيعوم. يحكى والله اعلم وقضى واحكم، انه كان في قديم الزمان وصار في العصر والاوان. This is a Moroccan version of Once Upon a Time, very long and poetic. So once upon a time, there lived a man. He was known by his cruelty. He was hard, very harsh to people, very mean. And he had a piece of land, a very big piece of land. He was a peasant. He was making a lot of money, but he's stingy. He has never helped anyone, and no one can ever take a penny away from him. But this man was gifted a very beautiful, religious, kind, tender wife. Her name is Aisha. Aisha would always wake up early in the morning, help the servants, help the people that work in their palace, ask them to pray, ask them to be grateful, and to always be thankful to God for life. But her husband is always harsh to her and mean. And one day, something told her husband to give her a gift. So he brought a lot of money and he invested it in a crown. He made a crown for her, a lot of gold and a lot of jewelries, diamond, pearls, everything precious. It was in that crown. Here, it's a gift, but at the same time, he wanted to save money. He had a lot of cash, so if he makes a beautiful crown and it's always on the head of his beautiful wife, that's good for him. So he gave her that gift. She appreciated the gift. And days passed by. One day, her husband was, of course, managing his piece of land. She heard someone begging and saying, "Oh, please give me something. Give me some food. May God give you back. Please give me some food or give me some money. May God give you back. Because if you give, God will give you back tenfold." As she heard this, it really rang a bell in her head, and she felt that she needs to go and help that poor person. So she started looking out from the window, and she called for that beggar. She told him, "Hey, can you come closer to the house?" Then she went, she opened the door. Then she told him, "What do you need?" He told her, "Well, I'm hungry, I need clothes. You can help me with some food or some pennies." She went and she searched the whole house. She did not find a lot of food, and she did not find any change. But she really wanted to help that man. So what she did, she went out and she took up her crown, and she told him, "Take this crown and leave the city. But before you leave, I want you to promise me that you will always give back." Then he made that promise. He saw that crown. It's a lot of money already in his hand. Then he left. The husband, the cruel husband, came back that afternoon. And then he called for his wife, "Aisha, come here, my beautiful." And he saw her, so beautiful, but there is no crown. He told her, "Where's the crown? I gave it to you for the first place to wear it, not store it in the house. Go and bring the crown." Then she told him, "Well, I gave it away." "You did what? You gave away a crown? Stop joking and bring that crown. I want to see it in your head." She told him, "I swear to God, I gave it away. There was a beggar and he was really in need. We don't need that crown at the end of the day. It's just a luxury that we can give away." He told her, "No, it's my crown, and they decide what to do with it." And he was shouting and screaming at her and like grabbing her by the hand and shaking her. Then he told her, "By which hand did you give that crown?" He told her, "Well, it's with my right hand." Then he brought his knife, and I'm sorry for the scene, he cut off her hand. And then he told her, "I'm going to kick you out of the house." And he took off all her fancy clothes, and he gave her his old, shabby, dirty, rusty jalaba. He told her, "Now go away. You never come back to my house until you find the crown." So she left. So she kept walking, bleeding, until she was outside of the city. And then she was about to faint. Some travelers saw her, and then they decided to help her. "Where are you going?" She told them, "Well, I'm going anywhere new, any new city." Then they took her to another city. Then she was there. She was there. She did not know what to do. She's bleeding. She's hungry. She's tired. And here, luckily, she found a woman. That woman was also a beggar there. But here in that city, something was different. People really appreciated beggars. They treat them with respect. They gave them opportunities. So if you are a beggar, you will be respected. You will get money until you are on your feet again. So she met her and she decided to have her in her house. She took her to a hammam and she was feeding her good food. And here she told her, "Well, now you need to tell me your story. Where did you come from and why you are lacking a hand? I mean, you look beautiful and you look like someone who has not suffered for a long time." Then she told her the whole story with her cruel husband. And then that old woman told Aisha, "Well, you can stay at my place. We can both beg, and whatever we get, we share it at the end of the day. And every week, we both go to the palace of the richest man in our city. And every week, every Friday, he will make very big event. He will give us food, money, and clothing. So that's what she did. The whole week she was helping that old woman, begging in the streets, making both ends meet, and then it's Friday. So our Aisha was in the queue, waiting for her turn to receive the money, the clothing, and the food. And here, that rich man, he saw her and he asked her, "Can you please come closer?" Okay, here she was in front of him. Uh, can I ask you something? Are you from this city? She said, "No." "Well, when did you arrive?" She told him, "A week ago." Then he told her, "Well, I have an offer for you. If you want, you can go and live in my palace instead of being in the streets." But here, Aisha told him, "Well, I came here with a lady and I cannot leave her alone." Then he told her, "The lady can also go to my palace and live there." They accepted. So they both went to the palace. Then, after a fortnight, as that rich man was so busy, he had to meet Aisha. So he met her one day and he told her, "Can you please tell me your story?" Then, she was hesitant at the beginning. She did not want to tell him everything. She does not know him. But she ended up telling him what happened and that she gave up a crown and her husband beat her for that and he kicked her out of the house. And here he told her, "But can't you really remember me?" She kept looking closely at him, but she could not remember. Then he told her, "Well, I am that bigger man who was one day in front of your house and you gave him that crown. And all of this fortune is because of your crown. So all of this belongs to you." Then that beggar and Aisha, they decided to marry each other. So they married each other and they started running this charity project. So they were helping the poor, giving opportunities to people, until one day, as Aisha was serving, the queue of women and her husband serving the queue of men, she could spot some familiar face. Yes, it's her husband, the cruel, harsh person. She saw him there queuing with people. So he must have lost it all. Now he's poor. Now he's waiting for some food and pennies. Then she went to her husband and she told him, that's my ex-husband. Then he told her, "Do you want me to take revenge? Do you want me to kick him out of the queue? I will never help him if you want." Then she told him, "No. I want you to invite him to the palace." So she invited him. Then her husband and her ex-husband started having this conversation. "Why are you here? Why are you queuing with people? Where did you come from? Because you are a stranger." Then he told him, "You know what? I had my wife and she dumped me and she walked away from the house and they spent all my money on her. I was looking for her until I was penniless." Then she came out from behind the curtains and she told him, "Shame on you. Look at yourself. Vulnerable, poor, and you still lying." Here the ex-husband was shocked. She was, it's my wife. She was my wife. And I kicked her out with no money at all. And now look at her. She made it in life. And here he understood the lesson. He understood what he had done and how wrong he was. Then, of course, his ex-wife Aisha was kind enough to let him stay in that palace until he died, and everyone lived happily ever after until the end of time. And this is the end of my story. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zuhair. That was fantastic. Thank you. Lovely
Thank
story. So that brings us nicely on to the second project that Mike and Lucy have I don't know where they get the time from, but they started up the World Storytelling Cafe, and Zuhair Khaznaoui is part of that. And basically, it aims to help storytellers who've, during lockdown, not been able to perform in public. But it also helps some of Mike and Lucy's staff who otherwise might not have been able to get by. So Lucy, can you tell us where the idea of the Storytelling Cafe came from?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you very much, Zuhair. That was a lovely story. Really enjoyed that. A bit gory, but lovely. Lovely ending. Yeah, so the idea started quite a long time ago. So I've always loved stories. My father was a storyteller, not the Moroccan kind who tells stories in the big square, but the British kind who goes to the pub and after a few beers would start telling stories and jokes with a crowd around him. So I think my love of stories came from my father in some ways, and I could see how he was able to connect really closely with complete strangers just through the power of his stories. And they were mostly war stories, which a lot of people would find very boring, but he was very engaging. So the way he told them, people were fascinated. And so that connection that he created with us in the family as well as in the pub, I really valued that. And then as I chose a profession, I went into the area of, first of all, speech therapy or communication disorders. And I was really keen to try and help people to communicate. And so one of the things I learned was that when I was working with children in particular, that it was far better to help children to communicate with each other and within their families through using stories rather than just through little exercises that were abstract. And then I moved on and I trained as a psychotherapist and a clinical hypnotherapist, and I realized that those people who were coming to me because they were anxious or depressed or had some sort of mental health difficulty or a difficulty with falling out of love with the world, the main problem that they had was that the story that they had created about themselves and about their position within their world was a really negative story. And that's certainly not to deny the very real neurological difficulties that many people have. But underlying a lot of conditions was a story that really was damaging to them. And so I spent a lot of my psychotherapy years really helping people to reframe their story. And so that's how I first of all became interested in and saw the power of stories to actually change people fundamentally. So for example, if somebody came and they had been in a car accident or they'd been mugged or something, they very often might say, oh, you know, I'm a victim of a car accident or a victim of a mugging. But if you just change the word to say, oh, no, you're a survivor of the road accident, you're a survivor of a mugging, you're really strong, look how powerful you are, then that could change the person's perspective massively. And, you know, the stories that the Moroccan storytellers and storytellers throughout the world tell can allow people to change their perspectives and have a perspective of people who they've never met before, so to develop understanding and compassion for other people. So there's a very famous little quote that I love. If you walk a mile in my shoes, you can see what I see, you can hear what I hear, you can feel what I feel, and then maybe you will understand why I do what I do. But until then, don't judge me. I think that sentiment is so powerful. That's one of the reasons underlying the whole motivation for setting up a storytelling cafe. But in Morocco, before COVID, Mike and I were developing a site for a storytelling cafe, and we love Moroccan architecture. As I said before, we were very excited about creating this venue where we could invite storytellers to perform and people to have a bite to eat and just experience the storytelling activity. And then COVID happened, and so everything was just put on hold, and I was really very disappointed about this. But Mike was very kind to me. He came back from a trip to Morocco, and he had to be in quarantine because he had some symptoms of flu and headache. And so just to be careful, it turned out he didn't have COVID, but just to be careful, he actually stayed in a separate house to us to make sure that we didn't catch it. And during this time, unknown to me, he created, along with Julio, who's here, and I believe Sarah and John Rowe, who's also here somewhere, I can't see him right now. He and they created this amazing website. And John Rowe, who we'd met out in Marrakesh before, is terribly well connected with storytellers internationally. And so between them, they created this website. So after 14 days, Mike came out of quarantine and he said to me, "Oh, do you want to see what I've been doing?" And I was really blown away that he'd done this amazing website. So instead of being depressed that we hadn't got this beautiful storytelling cafe up and running, I was just really excited that instead of it just being about Morocco, now it was expanded to include all different countries in the world.
And it really is amazing. If you get a chance, go to the worldstorytellingcafe.com and have a look, because they've got around 200 different storytellers from all over the world, and you can look back at their previous performances, and they also have live events. And well, Mike will tell you more about this. I mean, Mike, how did you do it? It sounds incredible.
Well, I think the in management circles, I think the expression of the year for 2020 is the word pivot, turning your organisation in a extremely quickly in an unexpected way. And what we were able to do was to pivot our hospitality business towards this online storytelling venue. So we didn't want to lay off our staff. We didn't know how long the crisis was going to last, but we certainly wanted to keep our team together. And I mean, more broadly, not just the reservations team who became hosts of meetings like this, but the hosts in the riads who were missing contact with guests and so on, and became managers of Facebook groups and social media websites and so on, but also our IT people who are contracted to us building websites, our PR agency, our so the broader team that was supporting our business, and so over the course of that first fortnight, we created a platform, and many of you have joined the meeting today through the World Storytelling Cafe, and it was the technology was good, it was robust, and it was there at the right moment. There were an enormous number of storytellers throughout the world who were deprived of an audience, and a lot of them were not able to access funding from their local, because their employment was relatively informal. It was more difficult for them to access funding, and we had a huge audience, a huge number of people who are now blocked at home and didn't have access to education and entertainment, whatever. So we had the performance, we had the audience, and we were able to put them together, and it was absolutely incredible. I can't say clearly enough how critical to all this John Rowe was, our curator, both through his contribution as a teller and through his connection to the world storytelling community. But it was an absolute phenomenon. So by the end of the first month, we had more than 50 storytellers, and it was an absolute who's who And it was really helpful in terms of generating a bit of income for them too. So we built in in the great tradition of passing the hat at the end of the performance, we built in an opportunity to donate via. It was driven by PayPal, but it was a little hat on the side. People clicked and they went through. And we had storytellers in the UK who had hats of several £100s, which was absolutely critical to them. But we also had we had storytellers in the jungles in Colombia who were connecting to the internet, using a borrowed connection from down the valley, who reached a global audience and made 30 or 40 quid, which made all the difference to them that week. So it was really very energizing, and I think it gave us a positive focus through the sort of depths of lockdown. It gave our team a positive focus. They were busy, they were engaged, they were feeling as though they were making a contribution. And of course, it's laid the groundwork for the physical storytelling cafe when that opens, because we're already world famous.
I can't wait to go there. Will you invite us all to the Marrakesh Storytelling Cafe, and can you tell us a bit about what it will look like when it's finished? Will you give us a sense, paint a picture for us about? We've got a picture of it now. I'll let you take it.
This is the physical building. In terms of its location, it's in the North Medina. So those of you who know the Medina, there's a very well-known, very well-established restaurant called Fondouk, which is French and Moroccan cuisine. We're absolutely dead opposite to the front door of Fondouk. It's 2 minutes north of the Museum of Marrakesh. We've got a wonderful old house. This is the outside. There will be a cafe, and we've got 2 performing spaces. The design of the spaces has evolved during lockdown. So our main performance space will have the teller sort of at the front of the audience, and then the physical audience, and behind them we've got we're projecting a Zoom audience. So the teller will be able to see both of their audiences simultaneously, and then we'll have a technician sitting in the room in the way that Yulia is at the moment. There's a wonderful roof terrace, views to the Atlas Mountains and across the Medina. So we're excited. It'll be. We will have obviously a program of not only Moroccan but international tellers. We intend to have a storyteller in residence program. So there is, within the building, there is an apartment where we can accommodate visiting storytellers, and I can see lots of nodding there. Of course, we would love in due course to run a Marrakesh storytelling festival, not forgetting there's lots of storytelling happening in other places. A special mention to Cafe Clock, who've been educating storytellers for the last decade, and most of all of the young storytellers in Marrakesh have benefited from that program, and working with other associations and other arts venues across the city, hopefully to bring a really intense and vibrant and colourful storytelling festival, which will be a combination of online and physical venue. Because I think one of the great positives to come out of COVID is that these events actually can be more accessible through this technology than if there was a requirement to physically get yourself to Marrakesh for the festival or to physically be there. So we really hope that we can keep the best of both worlds.
One of the things that we really wanted to do with the cafe was to try and encourage traditional tales, yes, but also some of the tales that you'll hear in Morocco are very traditional and kind of keep women and other marginalized groups in their place. And so some of those tales are very enjoyable, but at the same time I think it's quite timely, it's appropriate that some of those tales might be reinvented or new tales might be created. So we're going to be offering writing courses for young Moroccan women, international people as well. Not just women, actually men as well, but women sometimes need a little bit more encouragement in Morocco to take part in these things. So we'll be trying to encourage everybody. And we're going to try to encourage those people who cafe to just think about the impact of stories. We know that human brains are pre-wired to accept stories, and if you hear the same story again and again and again, and it's telling you that the woman's place is in the kitchen, or the queen is secondary to the king, and so on, then those kinds of prejudices, those ideas get really ingrained. And so I think retelling stories is a really nice way of trying to redress the balance and empower not just women but other groups, so people who have learning difficulties or the elderly, and there's lots of other groups that throughout the world seem to be a little bit marginalized. And I think retelling stories and just raising awareness a little bit is very helpful for this. John Rowe, when he's telling stories, is brilliant at this. He's very vigilant about the stories that he tells, and if there are stories that are told within the World Storytelling Cafe, he is really good at pointing out, well, this is an old-fashioned view that we're hearing now. So we're hoping to do a little bit of that as well, some social engineering.
You've also got an ambitious plan for a sort of jukebox of archive stories, is that right?
Yeah, well, we're hoping you very kindly offered for us to use your archives, which I think for those people who are really into storytelling, who are not just there for a little bit of entertaining, those people who want to know about the history and want to delve deeper into it, we're planning on having access to those archives both within the cafe through using technology, but also on the website. And there'll be other archives as well that we're hoping that we can add to your rather extensive collection. So we are very grateful actually to Richard's. Some of you may not know, probably most of you know, but Richard's written a wonderful book called The Last Storyteller, and it's full of wonderful Moroccan tales, and it gives background as well. And Richard went around Morocco years ago now, isn't it? collecting these stories. Most of the storytellers, I believe, they've now passed on, but
the big cafe in the sky.
Yeah. But it's an amazing collection that he's put together. It's a really fantastic book.
Thank you. But I'm very pleased because my book was a little bit pessimistic, because I was charting the decline of storytelling, but I'm very excited about this project, and also the new generation of young Moroccans that are like Zuhair, and also the chance to invite Hakima to she's a young lady who's involved in storytelling, and I believe, did you start in the Cafe Clock, but you're also part of the World Storytelling Cafe. So I'm going to let you take over now and regale us with a couple of stories. You need to unmute yourself, Hakima.
I think, Julio, you might need to unmute Hakima. I don't think she can unmute herself.
She
should be able to.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Hakima Mardi, a storyteller from Marrakesh Cafe Clock team. And my experience about storytelling started with my mom, referring to what Lucy said with the my mom, she started to teach us some stuff during tell us story, to not lie, and to a lot of lessons were learned by storytelling. And since I was young, I was always my dream was to be a storyteller. And for now, the Cafe Clock helped us a lot to be what we are now, storytellers and mastering the storytelling. And I want to tell you a story, but first I want I have the honor to join you to this lovely meeting and to read one of the lovely stories that I loved in your book, The Last Storyteller, from your book. As the birth of Sahara. A very, very long time ago, when the earth was very, very young, it was one huge garden covered in the beauty. There were tall palm trees, performed jasmine flowers. The song of nightingales flooded the landscape with their gentle melodies. At this time, all men, women, and children were honest, loyal, trustworthy. In fact, the word lie did not even exist. But one day, someone told a lie. It was a very small lie of no importance, but it was the end of childhood for the human race. It was the end of the age of innocence for all the men, women, and children. Here, God brought all the men and all the women and all children on the earth together and said to them, each time one of you tells a lie, I will throw a grain of sand into the earth. The people looked at each other, shrugged their shoulders, and said to themselves, a grain of sand, what a difference will it make? You can hardly see a grain of sand. And a lie after lie, little by little, the Sahara gradually came into existence as God threw a grain of sand into the earth from the heaven above. Here and there, where could still be seen the old oases, which were the traces of the original garden, because not all human beings lie. This is my first story for. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have a second story of a queen. This woman, this great woman that she thought to be what she wanted to be, even the injustice of the king. Once upon a time, far, far away from here, from everywhere that you have seen, there was a woodcutter. His name is Haman. Haman was a poor person. His job, he got 5 children and 1 wife, and his job couldn't feed everyone in his family. And for him, he was struggling every day. Remember this person, and let us jump to another day with another scene. One day, that was a rainy day. That was the king and queen were sitting in the castle, watching the beautiful view of the rain. Then the woodcutter passed by, and the king said, "Life is unfair, my queen. Life is unfair." Then the king said, then the queen said, "I'm wondering, sir. I'm wondering, my king, if this person has a great wife, you won't see him struggling today here." The king said, "So, am I a king because of you?" She said, "Front of every great king, there is a queen." And the king get mad. She told him, I only told you the truth." And the king get mad. The more the insistence of the queen, the more the king get mad and start to become mad and start to shout. And he told the soldiers to bring the woodcutter. So the woodcutter stood in front of him. He told him, how many children do you have? He told him 5. Told him, how many wives? He told him, only 1, sir. He looked at the queen and he told her, "I divorce you, and you will marry this man." And the woodcutter was like, "Sir, no, this is the queen. This is the queen, sir." And he told him, "This is an order. You'll not bring nothing with you to that house, to your new house. You will go with no jewelry, no silk. And as the queen told, she went with the woodcutter Human. As she was expected, the house was empty and cleaned, and the poor wife, Human's wife, was overworked with her children, who with 5 children. She helped them, and she cleaned the house. She organized everything. And she washed the kids, and everything was looked clean and organized again. Then she bring her the king a ring. That ring was a gift from her mom, a souvenir. She gave it to the woodcutter. She told him, took that ring and sell it and buy a donkey. He took the ring and he sell it and he buy a donkey. One day the donkey guided him in the forest to a wonderful place. And that place, that was a tall, huge tree. And that tree smells different, a beautiful perfume. And he cut it and he found a ring in the trunk of the tree. He pulled it and he found a golden box. He hid it and he went in hurry to the queen and he gave it to the queen. He told her, look at my queen, what I found. She told him, this is your money now. You will help your family and you will give some to the poor people. And as she told him, I want from you one thing. He told her, you order, my queen. She told him, I want to build a castle as the king has. And he did what she told him. He built a castle as the king has, and they invited the king. And the king went into the castle, and he was showing every detail, everything was the same as he has in the castle. And he told him, who owned this castle? The woodcutter said, it's a woman. The curtains raised, and he saw his wife, the queen. Our king cried, and his eyes were full of guilt and regret and pain. He jumped and he hugged his king and his queen, and he told her, my queen, forgive me. She told him, I will forgive you for one condition. It is, never underestimate the power of the women again. And they married and they lived happily ever after. This is the end of my story. Hopefully you enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Hakima. That was lovely. So a big thanks to Hakima and the two zoo hares, and of course Mike and Lucy. So I want to throw it open to the floor now. If you want to raise your hand either virtually or in real life and then ask a question. A couple of people have already put some questions via the chat room.
Shall I answer it whilst people are raising their hands, Richard? I can answer a couple of questions from the chat.
Yeah.
I think somebody asked how many people were working at the cafe and how much it costs us to run for a day. So if I take those two together, buying at wholesale prices, it costs us between 5 and 6 dirhams to provide one of these 1,000-calorie meals. And in terms of staff, we have two a core staff of 2 paid people. So Henna Cafe used to have 7 people working there, and we rotate the available work around. So on any given day there will be 2. And then because of social distancing, we want to control the number of people there in total. But there would be usually 1 volunteer and a couple of others who come at the end of the day when we're distributing. We distribute food after the Asr prayer in the early evening. So there would be usually 2 members of the Riyadh team would come over to sort of lend a hand there. So up to 5 people, and then of course, as I mentioned, the Piccola Bike Association. So up to 5 people, and in terms of cost, the food between 750 and 900 dirhams, depending on the menu that day, and overall, to give you a feel for it, probably about 1,200 dirhams a day is the cost of running the whole program fully costed.
Great. And someone else said, Oh yeah, I think it was Lee was talking about the, she said, were the lessons not sustainable online? Does that make sense, Lucy?
Yeah, we did try that using WhatsApp, and unfortunately we weren't able to continue that because the quality of the lessons wasn't great, and also we're very aware of safety, and it was not possible to monitor the safety aspects of teachers with very young children. So within the cafe, we always monitor our classes to make sure that everything is safe and that the quality of the lessons is high. But within WhatsApp, we did have a few lessons with WhatsApp. It didn't work. A lot of people do not have internet. They don't have a connection. So most of the families of the people who come to the Henna Cafe, they do not have internet. So it would be great if we could have offered internet and have Zoom teaching, but it just wasn't something that the teachers and we felt we could do. Moving forward, if we could offer Zoom and each child or each person had a tablet and an internet connection, then that would be something. Hopefully the pandemic will finish soon, and we'll be able to go back to real life classes. But if this sort of thing was necessary again, I think, if we had a lot more money, we would buy tablets and provide people with internet connections if they wanted that.
Okay, Emma Courtney has got some questions. If you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi there. So first of all, I love the girl power story. Thank you very much. I'm all for girl power. So I've got just a couple of questions. I have already donated online to the Gofundme, and I am taking Mike's advice, and I will be on a plane on Saturday to Marrakesh. Just for a few days. So the questions really are, is the cafe now open for me to go and eat there?
Yes.
And if and the second question would be, I'd like to make another donation. Would it be better to give them money there or to do it through the GoFund? What would be the better way to...
Thank you for your very generous donation, Emma.
Yes, thank you.
The cafe has been open since September, and we felt that was an important contribution as well to Marrakesh was just starting to reopen then, and helping to make sure that the people who went had a good experience was obviously important. So both for meals and for henna, Henna Cafe is open. We have some wonderful henna artists. They're one of the things that the cafe has achieved over the last decade is allowing these wonderful Nakasha or henna artists who are wedding artists or very experienced to make some money on an ongoing basis and get access through the tourism. So that's all there. The menu is a little bit restricted. We're actually serving. We're actually serving a lot of the food that we serve through the soup kitchen as well. So
that looked great, I have to say. I'd be happy to eat that.
Yeah. So and some of there will be some people I think who are on the call who've been to the cafe recently and can confirm that that's all working well. In terms of donation, it would be absolutely wonderful if you could make a donation while you're there.
Yep.
To either Sarah or Dunia, or our manageresses, or by all means the GoFundMe. We'll get there as well. So thank you very much again for your donation.
Yeah, you'll get a really great welcome, because at the moment there are very few guests, as you can imagine. So the guests that we have, the staff are very, very appreciative of them. And
you will have a great time in Marrakesh.
So I actually rent a room in a house in the north of the Medina near the Jardin Secret, and of course I haven't been back there. I started my rental on the 1st of December 2019. So I had a few months when I was out there, and so I was going back every few weeks and working doing my job from there and everything. And my plan had been that I was going to have this double life where I had part of my life in the UK and part in Morocco. That's coming, inshallah, that's coming. But yeah, so I'm really excited to be going back. It's been too long. I've missed it so much.
Great. And so Ali's got a question. Go for it.
Mike and Lucy, what you're doing is absolutely commendable. And thank you very much on behalf of the local community of what you're doing there. I want to ask you, I understand that you are actually involved also in the food basket during Ramadan. How did you go about that?
Was that with Colin?
No, well, I've noticed that Colin Bosworth is on the line.
Oh, right, he's there.
So Colin's project was just coming to an end at the end. Can you hear us, Colin?
You have to.
Can you unmute Colin?
Can you unmute Colin? Oh, yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Am I on
you're
now?
okay now.
Yeah. Well, firstly, you know, kudos to Mike and Lucy. Amazing work that you're doing. We started basically with a different idea, which was to feed families during Ramadan, during strict lockdown here, which was very difficult. It wasn't sustainable in the medium term. It was a short-term project, and it was very successful. And I would like to thank the British Moroccan Society. I would like to thank Mike and Lucy as well, who personally contributed significantly to that project, and to Sarah, who is online as well, and others who have made a real difference to life for people here in the Medina during what is an unprecedented crisis. I would also like to reiterate what Mike has said, that probably the best thing that anybody can do now is to come to Marrakesh. Come here, spend some money, enjoy your time. It's wonderful. 25 degrees this afternoon here in Marrakesh, Medina, absolutely stunning. And it's a great place to come. You're going to get spoiled. There are very few people here, and you're going to have a great time. So once again, I was actually following on Facebook before I realized I could join on Zoom. So I heard your very kind words, Mike and Lucy. Thank you very much. But what you are doing is now, you know, really very impressive. And we're all here in Marrakesh, Medina, we're very reconnaissant of the work that you're doing. So thank you very much. And for you, Ali, just to say that, you know, there is a real solidarity here in Marrakesh, Medina. People know their neighbors. There's a real community. And, you know, hopefully one day we can meet. Okay, so thank you all very much.
I think I'd like to add there that, you know, we don't really see what we are doing here as sort of qualitatively different to what you know, the Medina community does anyway. I think, you know, that there's a fantastic solidarity, and we're part of that. You know, it's very much our community, and all we're doing really is helping in the way that we can at the time. You know, and I think it's obvious that the crisis has hit those who work in tourism, whether it's artisans or people who work in hotels or whatever, shops. And what we're trying to do, I think, is to reach out and help those who are indirectly affected. So, you know, normally those artisans would be looking after their neighbours in a way that they are not able to at the moment. So, hopefully, we're offering a little bit of a conduit for our broad community of, you know, as I said already, you know, more than 50 people who want to help, and we're offering a sort of conduit and a way for them to help in a culturally appropriate and a sensitive way for a period of time, and we will. And I'm going to use the word pivot again. You know, we would love the things to return to normal so that the cafe can get back to its education role and. You know, be in the business of fishing rods rather than fish, to use go back to Lucy's story earlier. But we also have to recognise the reality, I think, of the times that we live in.
And if I could just interject once again, I think that there is a time for these type of projects, and I think the time is now. And I think that anybody who's listening to this and anybody who sees it should reach into their pocket. I'll be going around to Henna Cafe again tomorrow to give a little bit more. And there is also a time when the mood music will change, and I'm pretty sure about that. Marrakesh is very well positioned. It's a beautiful place to come. And I think that many, many people will be coming into Marrakesh in the spring and next autumn and enjoying a really great time. We have to get over this hump. This has been a very, very difficult time for the artisans, for the people working in the souks, for the people who have basically been without money since March. People here don't have reserves, they don't save, they live day to day. And when your total income disappears, you are in trouble. And often these people support extended families, and those extended families are in difficulty. So what Mike and Lucy are doing now is really essential. I ask you all to please contribute what you can to them. And we will be here when things pick up and we can all come back and have a great time in Marrakesh.
Very well said, Colin. Thanks for that. And there's another note from David Thompson who says, I have a disability. I'd like to know what you're going to do for people with disabilities. Can we talk a bit about that?
Is that regarding accessibility of the Medina for people with disabilities?
I'm not sure. I mean, will the Henna Cafe or the Storytelling Cafe, will that cater for people with disabilities?
Well, I think unfortunately the Medina is not terribly in terms of disabled access, in terms of physical access. We're not in great shape. The ground floor is going to be level with the street, so it'll be possible to roll in, and so you have access to our bookshop and the principal cafe. The performance spaces are unfortunately on upper floors. So at that point, I defer to technology and would say that we will have a very much a blended physical venue and online venue. So in fact, all the performances at the cafe will be accessible to everybody in the world, and we have a pay what you can afford approach too. So there's no barrier in terms of sort of buying tickets or affording to participate, whether you have a disability or not.
I think as well, if we know in advance that somebody is coming who has a physical disability, then we are much better equipped then to be able to offer things like ground floor eating or ground floor performances. So it's a little bit like on the trains. You need to let people know that you're going to be on a train, so that they can get out the ramps and things. If we know in advance, then we can make sure that the performance that's going on that day can take place on the ground floor.
Absolutely.
Because the steps are, as most of these buildings, unless they have a lift, most of them are pretty inaccessible, sadly.
And Sarah, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, a couple of things. Historically, through money raised at Henna Cafe, this is going back to when I was involved in the day-to-day running, we occasionally found ourselves with a surplus over what was required to fund our next couple of months of education. We felt it was wrong to sit on that money, so we looked for outreach projects that we could positively become involved in. And a couple of those, which were some of our, actually three that I can think of that were bigger projects. One was to provide quite a lot of equipment to the blind school in Marrakesh.
Yeah,
another was
BMS as well, actually.
And that it was in conjunction with the British Moroccan Society. That's right. Long time, my memory. Another was involved with a chef from England who set up a food and assistance project for a large foundation in Casablanca and helped them to improve their kitchen and catering facilities, which deals for many people with disabilities in Casablanca. We also were able to support someone who lives in Babdoukala with disabilities arising from polio as a child, and we bought a tuk-tuk for him to start his own business as a tuk-tuk taxi, and we helped to make improvements to where he was living to make it more suited to him to be able to comfortably use the space where he lived. So we have engaged with projects via Henna Cafe funds for people with disabilities.
And
The other thing,
we had blind students coming to the Henna Cafe.
we did, yeah.
Probably about a year.
There have been various things.
Yeah.
Also, I'd just like to echo what Colin said. I think it's incredibly important that wherever we are able, we put money into the Marrakesh economy. It will be healthy for the communities locally. It will be healthy for the businesses, both Moroccan and from overseas persons in Marrakesh. During lockdown, I have been receiving parcels of jewellery from dealers that I would usually have visited 7 or 8 times since the lockdown began. That jewellery has been sold to my online audience, and it twofold helps. It allows me to make donations to initially Colin's project and now to Mike and Lucy's project that is raised directly from the sales of those pieces of jewellery. It also means I'm sending money back to those traders in Marrakesh, and they have the same attitude of helping as many people in their area of the Medina as they possibly can while they continue to earn. I know that any penny that goes into someone's pocket in Morocco stretches a long way through a big family, and putting that money back into the economy in whatever way you can is crucial.
Great. Anyone else got questions? Because we should probably wrap up quite soon, but if anyone else is dying to ask anything. Yeah, Stuart, you want to unmute yourself?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, hi, question for Mike. Mike, we don't know one another, but I think we had some exchanges once when I was in my tour operating world before I retired. My wife and I, we've got a house just along from the Henna Cafe, just near Riyad Kniza. And I'm just wondering, in normal times, what the waiting list is like for the classes that you run in the cafe, because quite often we come across, as you do in the souk, young people you deal with buying bread or people we've had working in the house. And, you know, if they've got a smattering of English, I've often referred them down to the cafes, suggested that they come down and take up some lessons.
Well, thank you for the referrals. In practical terms, there's very seldom a waiting list because it's quite a fluid. We're quite fluid. We're quite responsive. So we have a full-time. In normal times, we have a cafe manager and we have an education manager. So we've got a full-time person running it who are meeting prospective students. If in case of language students, which I think you're referring to, assessing their level and figuring out what would be an appropriate class to put them into, and it's quite fluid. So if we're getting a bit overfull in one group, we can add, you know. So we've got one principal teaching space, which the limitation of the number of hours in the day, but we typically would be running 6 or 7 classes a day. So we have on an average day, I think, about 80 locals coming in for free education. It's not just languages, as Lucy said. So I think, you know, and I'm sure when we're starting again, it will be even easier in that regard. And the other thing which is really, really nice is that we have now got, after 10 years, Henna Cafe alumni all over Morocco. I mean, you can go to, you know, whether you're down in Ouarzazate or Agadir or whatever, it's amazing how often people come up and say, thank you for Henna Cafe, or Henna Cafe was a sort of stepping stone. So that really is, and it's great. I think that people are referring in and lots of people who, lots of those who benefited early on are now contributing in various ways. So, you know, we are an association, and I think have very deep roots in the Medina. And I think that that's one of the things that's made the crossover from the education program to the soup kitchen work very well. In that our community that we have contact with through education is able to surface the people who are in most need for the soup kitchen.
Okay, sure.
Tourists as well can come in and learn Darija if they would like to. They can have, usually it's a one-on-one class for You charge 25 dirhams.
Well, so,
35
yeah,
dirhams.
the suggested
So
donation
very-
is 20 dirhams for an hour. So I mean, you know, what's that? $2, £1.50 for an hour of tuition from a native speaker is a bit of a bargain, really.
Yes, and they both have master's degrees and are pretty fluent in English. So they're very good teachers to teach basic Arabic. Or some people go and have advanced Darija lessons as well. So I should say our motto for the cafe is making a difference together. So we don't feel that we are being patronizing and just giving to Marrakesh. We definitely feel as though it's a reciprocal thing, that we and anyone who visits Marrakesh receives so much from this wonderful country, you know, from the culture and the architecture, the food, the warmth of the people. So I think it's really important. A lot of people are saying, "Well done, Mike and Lucy," and it's not just us. It's the whole team. So Zuhair's here, Sarah's here, and you know Hakima and all the ladies who are working in the cafe. We're making a difference together. It's not just us being responsible for it.
Great. Have we got any other burning questions? Because we should probably start saying goodnight. Anyone else? Is that Alan's hand or is
Alan Palmer?
He looks like he's reaching for a glass. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Alan, you have to unmute yourself.
Can anyone unmute him?
No, I'm now unmuted. Sorry, I thought I've actually got the video crossed off and assumed that I was muted as well. So I hadn't realised that I was actually visible. So apologies, I wasn't in fact reaching for my cup of coffee.
Could have been worse.
Richard, could I say a quick word?
Sure.
Hi, it's Tim here, the chairman of BMS. Richard, before you wind us up, just to thank everyone very much. I mean, Mike and Lucy, that was just a brilliant comment. And actually, I thought your last thing you said, Lucy, was particularly important there, that this is clearly something which stands for a real link between our two countries, something where we both learn from each other, and that's really important. But we all feel this evening what an important project you have and what a difficult time this is for Marrakesh and for Morocco. And we in the BMS are delighted to support the project. And thank you too for the storytelling, and for Zuhair and Hakima, that has been fantastic as well. It really has been a great evening. So thank you from me.
Great, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tim.
And we're still hoping to have the Marrakesh Literary Festival for English writers and Moroccan writers in November next year. So we could maybe combine some storytelling with that. But as people have said, don't wait till November, try and get out to Marrakesh now. It's really whetted my appetite to come. And as I say, I think we should all try and make it to the World Storytelling Cafe as soon as possible. I can't wait to see it, the final finished product. It sounds such a great adventure. So thank you all so much. And a big thanks again to Mike and Lucy and Zuhair and Hakima and everyone for all your contributions. And thank you and good night.